Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anyway Whatever podcast. I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is painter and educator Isabel Samaras. I'm a huge fan of Isabel's work. I have been for a long time. I was really excited when she agreed to come on the show and talk to me. One of the things that we talk about is that she just had a cover for Mad Magazine come out in this August 2020 edition. And she's only the second woman in history to have a cover for Mad. So I was really honored to get to talk to her about that, because that is just an amazing achievement for any artist to be able to get a Mad Magazine cover, because that magazine, it spawned, a million illustrators and cartoonists over the years. So what a cool honor, and what an awesome thing to get to talk to her about. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit subscribe and click the bell to get updates on new episodes. Comment, like, share the video if you think this is something that somebody else is going to want to listen to. If you are listening to the audio version, subscribe wherever it is that you get your podcast content, and give us likes and reviews. All of the podcast channels really love that, and so do all of the advertisers. You can find us on any of the social media out there, Anyway Whatever podcast, on Twitter at AWP_podcast. My personal illustration and art Instagram is at Maximum Fluoride. And yeah, I'm going to let you get to it, because me and Isabel really, really dig down into what it's like to be a professional artist. And I think there's a lot of valuable content here. And check it out on the other side of the funky track. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is Isabel Samaras, and she is a painter and educator and all sorts of other cool things. Hi Isabel, how are you?
Hey Mike, how's it going?
It's going great. Like we were just talking about, hot, but otherwise not too bad. I like everybody to get their shout outs up front. So where can people find you on social media? Because people will probably, while they're listening, log on to Instagram, whatever, to look at your work while we talk.
I have one of those super fun, complicated last names, so people will have to probably write it down. But if you just search for Isabel Samaras, Samaras, it's almost a palindrome, same thing backwards and forwards. You can find me on Instagram. I think it's isabelsamaras.art. You can find me on Facebook. You can find my website. You can talk to me. You can send me little notes and stuff. And I'm pretty reachable and chatty and stuff. I mean, yeah, I'm one of the sort of friendlier animals in the forest.
Yeah, when I asked you if you'd be on, I've been a huge fan of your work for forever and ever, and so you were on the short list. I was just explaining to Isabel that I'm at the point in interviewing people and having guests that they're people that I don't necessarily know really well in person, and they're people whose work or output I admire in whatever it is that they do, whether whatever medium they're working in, or music or a chef or whatever. So I'm starting to have in people that I don't know super well. So I'm excited to talk to Isabel about her work. But a couple things up front that I totally had forgotten, and another thing that I did not know. The thing that I'd forgotten is that you had done some rock posters, and that is kind of how I made my bones as an artist. Like the only reason I have an art career and design career of any description was that I became well known in the rock poster world, and I had totally forgotten. And so I was looking at your website today that you had done some rock posters, and I'm looking at them, guessing that they were stuff you did for the Fillmore in San Francisco?
Yeah, it's all Arlena Osejcik, who was the art director for the Fillmore. Bill Graham presents for decades. I mean, just an amazing career. She just retired recently, and she just steered such an incredible ship and did such amazing work as an art director there. Brought in, I mean, every time we go to the Fillmore, it's like, I know these people. It's just like, it's like a clubhouse, because everybody you know is all over the walls. It's such a a fun gig. It's a fun gig to do just to be involved with that industry. It's fun because they give you a little short stack of posters. They give you tickets to go see the show. So if you're all into music, it's just like a dream job. You know, it doesn't pay particularly well, but at a certain point, you're kind of like, I don't care. Like, I just want this gig. I want to do this thing.
Right.
So, and that's led to some really weird conversations with various people. But yeah, sometimes the bands will like the poster and then they'll contact you about doing some more, you know, stuff, some t-shirt designs or something for them. And they're not always super articulate. I don't know if they're just like baked or, you know, what's going on, but it's a cool gig. I really enjoy that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what happened for me was that, I started, 80s hardcore punk scene, started doing art for bands that I liked. And, that was back in a time you could just mail somebody a letter and they'd be like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
And so, I kind of gone over on the show a little bit about like how I would like whatever band was coming through the Bay Area that I wanted to see, I would make a bunch of shirts of a design for them. And then I would go to the show and I would like sell them to get enough money to go into the show. And then as soon as I had enough, I would like go around the back to where everybody was hanging out in the van or whatever. And I would like either give them whatever I had left of my stash for them to sell, or if I'd sold everything, I'd give them a piece of the money so that everybody was, getting taken care of. And I built some relationships over the years that helped me grow a little bit in that way. And that is kind of what put me into the rock poster thing. And then from there, all the merchandise companies came a calling. They're like, well, every poster you do looks exactly like a t-shirt for a band. So, so that's how I got into like being a professional merchandise designer. And so, yeah, it's like that similar thing where, you do stuff for bands and, it goes out into the world and then it always comes back.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not like putting a painting in a gallery that, which is like a whole different audience and a whole different kind of setup. Which is kind of, I think your core thing is you're mainly a gallery artist, correct?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's so funny. I've fallen in and out of so many different sort of scenes and genres. Just, I often describe my life as just sort of being a leaf on the water. That's just sort of like, where is the current taking me? I'm not, I don't have like a super specific goal in mind. I think a lot of people do. I don't know. Maybe it's a 50-50 thing, but, I don't have like, I want to be there. I want to see my work, there. I just want to keep creating things that are interesting to me. And in that way, I have this theory that it's all sort of, everything's going to go where it needs to go. So I don't super stress out about like, oh, I need to be like enormously famous. I have to be like super big and dominate the scene. Because it occurred to me a long time ago, like I only need one person to love each thing that I make. I don't need 1,000 people or 1,000,000 people to love it. It's like speed dating. I want the person who's supposed to see this thing to see it and go, oh, have that feeling of like, I love it. And then they get to have it. And everything, it's perfect. It's what I want. That's really all I want. Is I just want to have enough opportunities in my life that the person who's waiting to connect with this thing that I made actually gets to see it and connect with it, and hopefully then possess it and have it, and then they get to have it. So that's, my goals are sort of modest. I mean, I think primarily I am a fine artist. I studied illustration originally. I had sort of a lopsided leap into that when I went to Parsons in New York City, I had been studying printmaking at the Corcoran in Washington, D.C. I loved printmaking. I love process. Mm-hmm. I love all this slow, like grinding lithostones, etching, metal plates in acid and soaking paper and rolling things through press. Like that whole process is just really, really appealing to me. It's very meditative and groovy and sort of old-timey feeling. I really dig it. I went to Parsons. I'd been there. I'm not a complete moron. They have a print department, but I didn't realize they didn't have a print major. Surprise. So, foundation year in art school, I think it's the same pretty much everywhere. That's sort of Bauhausian idea where you study a little bit of everything. They don't want you to like immediately start, all photography, all sculpture. It's like you have sort of like a smorgasbord sampler plate. And during that year, trying different things, I thought, well, the illustration department, seems very well rounded to me. I can do drawing, I can do painting, I can do some printmaking, and then I accidentally became an illustrator. And I have no regrets at all.
That's what happened to me too. I went to animation school and ended up being an illustrator.
Yeah, you just don't know. This is what I'm saying. Leaf on the water. You just don't know. You think you're paddling your leaf. You think you have a canoe. You don't have a canoe. You have a leaf. You think you have some direction and some control over what's happening, and you really don't. And again, like coming out of school thinking like, okay, now I'm this. Now I'm going to be doing illustration work. One of the first jobs I got right out of school paid what to me was an astronomical amount of money doing 70 illustrations for a Japanese seafood cookbook called An Ocean of Flavor. And I took all that money, and it was just like, it was like the Steve McQueen movie where Ally McGraw and Steve McQueen are rolling in the bed with all the like money flying around there. It was just like, they didn't pay me in actual dollar bills, but in my mind,
Sure.
I was rolling in the bed with all the money. And it was only a couple $1,000s, but as a starving art student, to me, that was Steve McQueen money. Took that money, and I went to Italy for a month and just, ate fabulous Italian food, hung out with fabulous Italian people, tried to speak Italian to other Italian people, and looked at just an amazing, just huge assortment of art, and it kind of rewrote my brain. I don't know if it was the combination of the food, the wine, the people, the art, something in the water. I don't know. I came back realizing that I wanted to tell my own stories more than I wanted to tell other people's stories. So I had a very sort of passive-aggressive relationship with illustration for a while, where every time somebody would call a job, I'd be like, yeah, I'm really busy right now, and I don't know if I can do that. And I would take the jobs because I needed to put food on the table and pay rent and stuff, but I really just wanted to do my own thing. But what I mean about having no regrets about having studied illustration, I'm so glad I didn't study fine art at that time at Parsons, because the whole department was really influenced by what was popular at that time, which was Neo Geo stuff, like big abstract geometric paintings. Like, so not my bag at all. And what I learned in school was all this stuff about narrative and storytelling and communicating visually, because that's what illustration is. So it was absolutely the tools that I needed for the kind of paintings that I ended up wanting to put out there in the world. So
yeah, I think a couple of things there is that Kozik, one of the things that he told me years ago when we first started communicating was, he put into words how I'd always felt about my art, and I just want to keep making cool stuff as long as I can. And and so I also am kind of the same thing, where I am like a leaf. And I kind of figured out at some point that rather than trying to be really well known for doing one thing, like, Pusshead or like Robert Williams or like, I wanted to be able to do a lot of different things. Like, I just wanted to be kind of a problem solver. Like, if you need graphic design, I can design something. If you need it illustrated, I can illustrate something. If I want to do a painting and get in at a gallery show, I can do that too. And I just wanted to never kind of be stuck into like, well, now I have to do this for the rest of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As an artist, that just didn't seem like the way I wanted to do things. And so that's kind of where I'm at with it in that respect. And to speak to your thing about, learning illustration and having the foundation of being able to have a narrative and things in your work. As a fan of your work, I don't like to pigeonhole people into like, this is what you are, this is what I think you are. It's just, for me, I've always kind of had you in like that original Juxtaposed magazine group of people who were lowbrow artists, more or less. Like, I feel like those are the people that you showed with for a long time. And that's
Absolutely.
kind of, and every single one of them has that same thing that you were talking about, is lowbrow art is all about the narrative. It's all about telling a different story than what the actual painting might be. And I think that was trailblazed by Robert Williams, where his paintings had so much going on and it was just this massive tale. But if you just
with all sorts of little elements that you could sort of go like, what's happening here? What's happening here? Like 20 paintings in one painting.
Yeah.
It's
totally amazing.
Todd Shore too. Todd Shore has the same thing where it's just like, this giant painting the size of like a wall has 1,000 paintings in it. Like you could cut that thing up into 100 pieces and each one of them would be just like a smashing little painting.
Hands down, my favorite painter of all time is Todd Shore.
He's amazing.
So one of the and to kind of tie in, when I had asked you if you'd come on and be a guest, and I was extremely happy when you said you would. You had posted around the same time another podcast that you were on, and I actually sat down and listened to that. And you there was a part where you were going through and talking about the nuthatches with attitude painting, which is like it's like all the guys from NWA as birds.
Yeah.
And you were talking about how, like, you broke it all down. This is what all this stuff is, all this detail, and you explained everything about that painting. And then at the end, you were like, and if you just think it looks cool, that's good enough for me too. And like that was so
because that's the
awesome.
thing. I mean, that's thank you. That's been sort of the motto or whatever for all this stuff since the beginning, like since the early paintings on TV trays and stuff. It's like, okay, so you might just look at it and go, oh, it's a naked lady, and just enjoy it on that level. You might go, oh, it's I Dream of Jeannie, Jeannie and she's naked, and you might enjoy it on that, like, oh, funny, haha. You might go deeper or further and go, oh my God, that's a reference to, these beautiful odalisque paintings that were basically sort of fetishizing women from a different culture, this idea of Orientalism, and people were starting to explore different parts of the world and coming back with these stories about harems, and like, ooh, women at your beck and call. And that's exactly what I Dream of Jeannie was doing. And so taking these two things and kind of layering them and mashing them up together, creating something where there's I'm hoping, a vibration between these two things. And some people might get that layer, but it's not like, oh, you disappoint me, or oh, you're not getting it if you don't get all of those layers. Any getting of it is good. And even just looking at it and going like, oh, I like the way that hair, like any of it. It's all, bonus material. Like I'm trying to put things in the world that I want to see first. Right. And then, hopefully other people want to see them too.
That's huge because I kind of feel the same way. It goes back to that. I just want to make stuff that looks cool. And it depends on what day of the week it is, what that is, and whether it's going to be a painting or whatever. I've kind of been working for myself for like a decade now, and so a lot of it is dictated by how close is the mortgage payment due and what can I get done to get a check before I have to pay the mortgage. So
deadlines are very motivating.
Yeah. And so how frequently are you painting at this point? Because I know you teach as well, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that as we go.
It's summertime, baby, so I'm not teaching right now.
Well, not only that, but everybody's in quarantine.
Yeah. Well, here's the funny thing. Like I think that I live in a sort of crisis to crisis mentality. I was just talking about this some of the other day. I've been so locked into a schedule that's driven by deadlines of one form or another. Mostly show deadlines, exhibition dates, things that you have to sort of deliver pieces, on this time schedule. And I've been locked into that for so long that I tend to feel kind of, there's a word for it, time famine. You ever heard of that?
No, but in my mind, I already know I suffer from it.
Yeah, I think everybody does to some degree, right? And it's a real thing that they talk about, this idea that you're basically starving for time. And it causes, depression and anxiety and all the things you would imagine it would. So in my imagination, this quarantine, a lot of shows kind of got put on hold, things kind of backed off, and I was like, oh my God, now I can finally like create work outside of other people's schedules and demands, just like purely paint what I want, when I want, how I want, all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up getting slammed with another deadline for a magazine cover, but
so we're definitely going to talk about that.
It failed completely before it even began. But I'm really interested in trying to figure out how to capture time affluence, like how to have, I think for decades I've been trying to figure out a balance. I think everybody probably is at some point in their life trying to figure out some sort of balance, like life, work, work, play, all this kind of stuff. I want to have a pie chart in my life where I have time for playing music, seeing friends, messing around in the kitchen, baking stuff, cooking, whatever, knuckling around in the garden, making art. And I want some kind of a balance to that. But yeah, so how often do I paint, to get back to your question? I'm trying to carve out protected time for that, because what tends to happen to me specifically is that I am very distractible. Once I sit down and paint, and I'm sure this is true for everybody, you go into the zone. You're in the flow. Absolutely. The sun rises and falls and you were oblivious. The stars are circling overhead and you have no idea what time it is. And that's wonderful. But I swear to God, like my studio, this place I am right now, this is connected to my house. But sometimes the distance between the kitchen where I just ate breakfast and this room feels like 10,000 miles. I'm like a European vampire. You used to be able to stop them by sprinkling rice on the ground. They'd have to stop and pick up every grain of rice and count it before they could attack you. And I think I have that attitude sometimes. Like the things that stand between me and just sitting down at my easel and doing the work sometimes I have to put blinkers on. Like I have to just sort of walk around like this, like don't look, whatever else is needing your attention, just ignore it. Just walk into the studio, just sit down and paint.
I saw somebody recently kind of summed it up as like, I need a full day to make art, and most of that time is getting myself ready to make art. Like I need a good 3 hours to sit around here and figure out what I'm going to do before I actually start doing it.
I'm relieved to hear somebody else does that too.
I think a lot of us do that actually.
I need to feel the muse. Like I have to wait, like this was a while ago before I had like all the deadlines, but I used to I eat breakfast or read the New York Times. I wait for the muse to like come settle upon me and then I could start working. I'm not like, I don't have that ability. Like some people I so admire have that machine ability to just like get in the studio, sit down, start working. Like unless the deadline is breathing hot on my neck, it's hard for me to kick into that. And then once that happens, it's a whole different thing. Then you've got like
I didn't eat for 17 hours.
Yeah, that thing where you're so freaked out that it's just like it's all about the work and everything else just goes to shit because it's just all about the work. So
it drives my wife absolutely insane. She's like, why don't you just do it? Why don't you just get out there and do it and then it's done? And I'm like, it does not work that way. It just doesn't work that way. One of my hacks for that, because I always have a bunch of different stuff going on. I might have an album cover. I might have a painting. I might have a skateboard design. I might have, I pick something, that's easily accomplished, in a creative realm. Like if I have a sketch to do that will only take me 10 minutes, I'll try to do that first because now it gets me in the zone. Okay. I've made something. I've got something done. Let's just jump right to the next thing. That's kind of my personal hack for that. But you're not alone. Like everybody I talk to, we all suffer from that same damn thing. Even the people who seem like they don't, they all do too.
Yeah, I know a couple people who really are like just amazing, just nose to the grindstone, just churning it out. And I am in such awe, but I can't, and B, I don't know if I want to. I just feel like I want elements of life in my life. I don't just want my life to be about work all the time. And I think I realized a while ago, like I just had this picture of like, myself on my deathbed. And I really didn't think I would be sitting there going, boy, I'm so glad I blew off all my friends and family to spend time making things for total strangers. It's like, I really feel like I think we're social animals. I think that's why this quarantine thing is so difficult for everybody right now. It's like, I think we are whatever 90-something% chimp.
Yeah, I have a theory about
meant
that.
To be around each other. Yeah. And I think I'm not healthy mentally if I'm just spending all my time in the studio working. I don't think that's a good long-term program for me to be mentally healthy to do that.
I think everybody's kind of different in that way. I'm one of those weird introverts that at some point I realized all the things I wanted to accomplish in my life required me to be an extrovert. And so I just kind of fake it. I've been faking being an extrovert my entire life. Like I wanted to sing in a band, and I can't really pull that off if you're an introvert. And, I want the world to see my art, and, now I'm doing this show. So I kind of just started cheating that. But yeah, like I can isolate like nobody's business. And,
that's so easy.
Coming out here to the Valley, when we bought our house a few years ago, and my wife works in TV and films. And so when she's on a production, nobody works longer and harder hours than those people do. And so she'll be gone from the house. Like, it'll be like 8 weeks, 6 months, depending on what she's on, where she won't be here but to go to sleep. And like, she comes home, takes a shower, goes to bed, gets up and does it again. And so I might be here by myself more or less for, 3 months at a time. And being far enough from LA now that, it's a gigantic effort to get down there with traffic. I find myself out here by myself. Just the only people I talk to are the neighbors I see when I'm walking my dog. And so this quarantine thing for me has been not much of a change for my daily life, except for that my wife has been here every single day now for 4 months, which is totally awesome, because this is definitely the most time. Most Americans aren't used to spending that much time with anybody in their family.
Right.
As we have.
If you're lucky enough to have somebody in your family. I mean, a lot of people are trapped, in solitude, and I think that's extra hard.
But yeah, and I think that one of the things in this country, you start going to school when you're in like preschool, and you go every day, and then you get kindergarten, and then you get middle school, and like all the way through till you get to college is get up, go to the same place, do the same thing with the same people, day after day after day. And so, the way our school system is kind of set up is you are learning things, but what you're really learning is how to go to work every day and not break. And so, then you go into your career, whatever it is, and 99% of people get up, same time, go to the same place, and do the same damn thing for 45 years. And that's all been taken away. The thing that we've been conditioned to do since we were 5 years old has been taken away. And I just don't think people can handle it. I think they're losing their mind.
Right. Oh, I absolutely agree. And the only people I think who have been in training camp for this all along are freelancers, because we went through the awkward thing, exactly what you said, like kindergarten, grade school, middle school, high school, maybe college. And every day, Monday morning at 9 a.m., you knew where you were supposed to be. Every morning at 9 a.m., you knew where you were supposed to be. Your whole life up until the day you graduate, whether it's high school or college. And then there's this you just get pushed off a little cliff and you're just free falling, and what do? It's 9 a.m. on Monday morning. You don't have a place to be. What do you do? Like, how do you motivate yourself when all the external motivations are gone? And I think that's sort of that make or break moment for people who are self-employed and freelancers. And if we've been doing it all this time, as so many of us have, in many ways, nothing has changed for us. If I didn't watch the news, and if it wasn't such a pain in the ass to get groceries, I would have almost no real knowledge, except I miss people. I miss my friends. I mean, I live a kind of hermetic life with my husband and now my college-age son who's stuck here at home with us against his will.
Yeah, I have friends with kids that age, and they're like, everybody's like, oh, this is like way harder than having a regular teenager.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's brutal, and it's so unfair. I mean, I feel so bad for all my students, and I feel so bad for all the people in college. Like, they're supposed to be off finding out who they are, having the experiences that are going to help them, become the people that they're going to be. And there's just this crazy forced arrested development. Everybody's crammed back in their childhood bedrooms, sitting with their piles of stuffed animals and stuff when they're supposed to be out, doing whatever they're going to be doing. But like that, it's like it is super weird. On the brighter side, yes, let's go there.
Is that every artist I have talked to for this show, every single one was like, my day gig went away, and I just started making my art that I made in my free time.
I hear that a lot.
And they're like, and my income stayed the same. Like now I guess I don't have to have a day job anymore. And I hope that stays the case. One of the things that I loved, one of the bright sides of the recession a decade ago was we got this maker industry where people couldn't find a job. So they're like, I'll just do whatever I want. So they start making soap or, whatever, furniture, whatever it was. And we got this insane, and it gets mocked a little bit because it's a little hipstery and there's a lot of artisanal, beard soap or whatever, but just the idea that people, it almost feels like it went back to the Depression era where we had this like surge right after the Depression of industry that jumped off. And I feel like so many people just were like, if I can't find a job, I'll make my own. And I know that was kind of where it was for me. I was in video games, and the game that we'd worked on for like 3 or 4 years launched the week that the big financial meltdown happened. And so it never had a chance to go anywhere. And so then I was planning on leaving that job. And then in the end, it ended up, like it gave like a 6-month notice, and they're like, okay, that's totally fine. I'd worked there forever, and I wanted to train the person who was going to replace me or whatever. And so I found myself like, they're like, yeah, we're just going to let you go early if you're planning on going anyway. So, so I found myself I was planning on going full-time freelance, but I found myself kind of, like you said, like I was pushed off the cliff a little bit. But yeah, it was in that same time and just watching other people do the same thing. And I'm really hoping, that's the bright side of all this, is that people were able to follow their passion more into it being what their life is, as opposed to something that they do when they get home from work or on the weekends,
Yeah, it would be great if that's sustainable. I mean, if that was something that led a whole bunch of people to have the time affluence, to explore the things that they've always dreamed of doing, and then be able to actually like execute that plan and see it work. I have no idea. No one knows what this is going to look like, a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now. It's just such a giant, it's such a giant unknown. But I feel guilty that so much of my life is normally, just sort of plodding along like this. It also sort of makes me question like how hermity I was. Like I shouldn't be able to, just say it's the same. There should be I think there should be a real distinction between my quarantine and my post-quarantine life. And the fact that they're almost identical is a little, maybe something I should be looking at.
Oh God. Yes. That has definitely been one of those things where I'm like, one of the things I keep saying when I'm talking to people is like one of the benefits of doing this show for me is that I actually get to see all my friends and talk to them.
Right.
And I was like, I'm not sure that's necessarily a good sign of how I'm living my life.
Right. Right. When you're looking forward to like some excuse to see somebody through the screen,
it's fucking ridiculous.
It's pretty crazy.
So earlier you alluded to the fact that you were working on a magazine cover. And that was something that I was unaware of, and is it's huge. It's huge.
I'm pretty excited.
So tell everybody what it was you got to do, because I don't want to be the one to say it. You have to say it.
I got this. I recently was able to fulfill a long-standing childhood fantasy when I was asked to do the cover for Mad Magazine. I will be only the second woman to ever do the cover for Mad Magazine. For a long time, I think they were telling me that I was going to be the first one. That was awesome, too. But fortunately, they've had another woman do a cover before me, so that's great.
But is it only two recently? Never in all the years before, until just recently?
The other woman who did a cover, and I'm spacing on her name right now, she does kind of sculptural three-dimensional work, and it was in 2000 something, like one of the early aughts. So it is relatively recent compared to the scale, on the timeline. Like the dinosaurs were here and humans are here. Like the other woman to do it is also a pretty recent occurrence. Originally, I was supposed to do. They had a page in Mad Magazine called the Weisenheimer Museum, where they were having the art director there, Susie, is just amazing, and Susie Hutchinson, and she was creating this page in the magazine called the Weisenheimer Museum, where they were asking different artists to come and sort of reflect on what Mad Magazine meant to them. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes it was, like Ron English or somebody doing, an homage to Alfred E. Newman, or somebody doing themselves, like drawing them as a child in a tree, like reading Mad magazines, whatever they wanted to present in that space. And that was originally what I was going to be doing for Mad. And then they went through a bit of a sort of reorganization. Mm-hmm. And I think that part of the magazine has gone away. And so I thought, oh, damn, like I was going to be the first woman to ever do the Weisenheimer Museum, and now that's gone. But then they came back. Susie came back a little while later with the cover idea. And I'd like to show you. It's going to come out in August. It's not on newsstands anymore. You can get it in comic book shops, or you can subscribe, which I highly recommend. Keep Mad Magazine alive. There's a rich tradition of what this magazine means to all of us in culture, pop culture, humor, everything, art. Susie doing an amazing job with it. I will show you just like what can I do.
Well, this will not air until after it's out. So
I'll show a tiny little bit more and so see if you can see just a little tiny bit.
Awesome. Holy smokes, Isabel. That's so amazing. I think just every single artist or illustrator or comic book person who would ever hear this show, who is a creator, everybody would have to agree that would be at the very top of the bucket list. So you won the goddamn lottery in that respect. Everybody who listens is going to be like, exciting. God damn, it's that professional jealousy thing that, where you're like, that's so amazing, but it makes me angry in some small way. It's like, it's that weird thing. It's that we all have that professional jealousy when we see it. Some projects somebody else got, and even if we're not anywhere in the league of the person that got it, you're still like, man. But that's amazing. What an amazing just like an accomplishment and like just an honor, right? To be that's
I wish
insane.
I could hop in a time machine and go tell like little child me sitting there reading like stacks of Mad magazine, like, just wait, you can't believe it, what's gonna come is really cool. Like there was some way to it wouldn't matter. But last year, I think we were at Comic-Con. I was talking to Sergio Aragones, and I was showing him some of the stuff I've been doing recently, and he was like, this is wonderful. We should have you on Mad. I was like, oh, I'm already talking to Susie. He's like, she knows Susie. It was just like, it was great to be able to sort of connect with him. It's funny when you have an awe of somebody and then you get to talk to them a little bit close. I in no way consider myself a peer of Sergio's, but just to be able to sort of speak to him as a fellow artist instead of just like fangirling all over the place was really a sweet moment. I love his work so much. It just, my whole childhood was just obsessed with all his little tiny doodles in the margins, and he's hilarious and great.
The best, yes, absolutely the best. Mad Magazine is totally the best, and that's like that.
People should subscribe. Subscribe. Go right now. It's not expensive. Keep this thing alive. They need you. Subscribe.
Yeah, there's that thing where you kind of have to be careful about meeting your heroes because you just never know what you're going to get. But then there's a thing with I've noticed, like I think it's mostly with the creative industries. Musicians, artists and stuff, is there's that other level that you're always trying to get to, that's always like on the horizon, and you're like, well, I want to be in the same conversation with these people or these people or these people. And it's like, you never quite get there as far as you're concerned. And then every now and then you find yourself in a room with the people that you wanted to be in the conversation with, and you're like, oh wow, I guess here I am. You know what I mean? It's like you get these little reminders, that you are getting somewhere, that you have risen levels, and it's just hard to, it's hard to see the forest for the trees sometimes. So the fact that you kind of had that moment for me it's amazing. Like that's as amazing to me as the fact that you got to do the cover in the first place. You getting to have that realization that's super awesome.
No, it's great. I have to say, like, I have occasionally dreaded meeting certain people because it's like, oh God, what if they're an asshole? It's going to destroy my ability to ever enjoy their work again. But I think with very, very few exceptions, who shall remain nameless.
Very few.
People are terrific. I mean, people are just great. I've had a couple opportunities to meet people that I've spent most of my life worshiping, and it's always been just a delight. I mean, just a super awesome, wonderful surprise. I met Julie Newmar through her brother, John, who I met, I think he came to one of my openings at a gallery or something. Anyway, he called one day on the phone. I was like, "Hey, I'm hanging out with Julie and down in LA. Do you want to say hi?" And it just, I died. Like I just,
Well, you've done paintings with her in painting.
I've done, yeah. She's been. I mean, here's the deal. Like when I was growing up, there was a model for what a young woman like myself could expect to achieve in her life, and it was housewife. Like a lot of the TV shows, it was like you were a housewife, you stayed at home. The guy got to go and do the exciting stuff and be an astronaut or work at the agency or whatever, and the woman stayed home and made casseroles and vacuumed. And if there were a couple places where it's like, oh my God, there's this Jeannie, she has incredible powers. Samantha, Bewitched, incredible powers. Their world was so constricted. It was like, don't use your powers. Don't you dare use your powers to clean the house.
It was like a shame for them to have them.
Yeah, it was, which I think was some sort of weird tamping down of like female sexuality or something. Like, don't you dare use your woman power.
Of course it was.
Dare use your woman power. But Catwoman, none of that applied. Self-employed, owned her own business, stealing things, but had staff, henchmen. It just seemed like that was such a more. I mean, I think there was a period in my life where, had I not been showing any skill as an artist, I might have become a cat burglar. It's just as likely that I could have ended up like picking locks and stealing jewelry or something, because she presented a different possibility to life that was so important to me, so important to this idea of not aspiring to this other vision, aspiring to something that was much more self-directed, that didn't necessarily have to be rooted in crime. But yeah, and then, I ended up meeting her later for dinner, and she was just lovely, and it was just a dream. And even before that, a friend who makes dresses for various people in Hollywood and some rock bands and stuff told me, like, oh, I was over at Julie's house. She has your book. She loves your paintings. And again, like, I just about died. It was just like, my idol knows who I am. She knows I exist on this earth. It's just this crazy, weird, I could not understand. Like, it was just sort of worlds collide. I don't understand how this is happening kind of moment. So
yeah, a total random Julie Newmar moment I had recently was that she was in one of those like really low budget exploitation teen prostitute movies from the 80s called Streetwalkin'. Starred Melissa Leo actually, and she played like a streetwalking prostitute, and she was probably in her early 50s at the time, and just as beautiful as she was on the Batman TV show. And what I never knew about Julie Newmar is how tall she is. She's really tall.
Legs up to here. Legs all the way up to here.
Yeah. And you should watch that movie. It's actually really good. And she has a pretty substantial role in it, actually. And she's just kind of in lingerie walking around in Manhattan the entire time, which is an interesting way to see her. But standard exploit. One of those genres of movies that doesn't exist anymore, the teen runaway prostitute movies.
Just give it time. It's cyclical. Everything comes back around. That'll have a renaissance probably at some point.
There's just things you can't do anymore. And it's been talked about on this show before. Like, and I do not feel bad about that. Like the amount of racism that you can get away with in movies in the 70s versus now. I'm fine with it going away. Absolutely. And you know what? If the only teen prostitute movies we get for the rest of history are the ones that were made in the 80s, that's fine with me too. I don't think we need to keep that genre alive.
We need to add to that.
I don't think there's any reason to make that seem like it was cool in any way.
No.
So the Mad Magazine thing is absolutely huge, and congratulations on that. That is such an amazing thing. And as a fan of your art, it's not surprising to me that that's where you ended up. But that nonetheless, that's super cool. And I am going to go and subscribe to Mad Magazine because you said so. And because I totally had forgotten that was a thing that I would want to do. Because, it's like, I've never been much of a comic book person, but I always loved Mad Magazine because it wasn't I'm not a superhero comic person. And so I think Mad put me on the path of like, where I ended up in the mid 90s and later, with that juxtaposed generation. And then, we were going back and like reading the Freak Brothers and like doing, and you had like, and then you got like Clow and the Ghost World stuff that wasn't, there were these books that weren't superhero comics. And so the only comic books I own
graphic novels
are non superhero comics. Like, I'm like a super huge fan of Jeff Darrow and like all that hard boiled stuff. That's just the in most insane illustrations ever. Cause that was always my problem with comic books, was that the illustrations inside never matched the outside. And I always felt like I was somehow getting ripped off. It's not that way anymore. Like, I think Image Comics and Spawn and McFarlane and those guys were like, well, we're going to make the inside look as good as the outside.
But for the longest time, it was sort of like this kind of bait and switch where you would fall in love with something based on the cover art and then you'd open it and it just wouldn't, even if the cover art was beautiful, it was just so different or just didn't have the same hook, whatever it was that, kind of got you. Be like, but I want it to look like the inside.
Exactly.
I mean, that's why it's so amazing when you see like an entire thing that Alex Ross has done like cover to cover where like I don't even know how long that must take him to do, but like every panel just like beautifully
fully
rendered
painted.
on water. Yeah, fully painted. Just astonishing. What a master that guy is.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think that probably, it doesn't occur to me often that's probably why I ended up being so into like doing t-shirt designs or rock posters, is like I could tell my story in one image and it could be like a cover image.
Right.
Because I tried to do comics a couple of times. I was asked to be in some anthologies and I just couldn't. I ended up just doing like splash pages, just single art pages for the middle of the book or whatever. Because I'm not good at it. And anyway,
it's okay to not be good at everything. No, it's okay. I did a comic once for a book anthology. They said, can you do this like comic? I did 4 pages and I didn't like it. It's not, I mean, I love storytelling, so it's really tragic. I think if I could work with that medium, I would be really fulfilled as somebody who wants to tell stories, because I could combine, words, which I love words, with images, but here's a dirty little secret. I don't like drawing. I draw primarily to create a blueprint for painting. I don't draw for pleasure. I don't draw I love looking at drawing. I'm so enamored of people who have beautiful draftsmanship and draw beautiful things, but it's kind of painful for me.
No, I get it.
Not always, but to a certain degree. My husband gave me one of those like drawing a day books, which at the time I thought was really passive aggressive. Like, just because you like to draw all the time doesn't mean I want to do that. And why are you trying to make me draw? And I really rebelled against it. And I tried drawing a couple of things and they were very crabbed and painful looking and just sad and terrible. Here's a crazy thing. And then I went to an event that 111 Mini Gallery had. They do a Sketch Tuesday event, but this one was specifically as a fundraiser for a friend who had a stroke. He's an animator, and he lost the ability to draw with his right hand because the stroke was on the left side of his brain. So all the artists that were invited that night drew with their non-dominant hand, so in my case, my left hand, or painted or whatever your medium was.
Who was the animator?
It's my friend Jamie Baker. He's worked on tons of Pixar movies. I think he's the voice of one of the crabs in Finding Nemo. He's just a delightful human being, a really, really funny guy, very talented, brilliantly, just one of those people who can draw really well, obviously. But this was just, it came out of nowhere and fucking devastating. And all the work went up for sale. Everybody's trying to do all this stuff with their left hand all night long. We're all doing these weird, sort of shaky, awful things. But, some of them are charming. And some of those people are so talented, some of those animators, that even their left hand can, it was very impressive.
Frank Frazetta.
Frazetting it up with their left hand. But the next day I sat down to draw in my drawing a day book, which I turned into a bird a day book because I really love birds. And the drawing was completely different. I should take a break and go grab it and show it to you, because it will blow your freaking mind. I'm not kidding. The drawing before and the drawing after, maybe this is something we should all be doing, because something rewired in my brain, having spent the night drawing with my left hand, forcing this like clumsy thing to try and do something. The next time I sat down to draw with my right hand, just something different was flowing out of it that is just super weird to me.
After we're done, if you take a picture of each of them and send them to me, I'll just put them up in the video, because I'm going to put up pictures of your paintings and stuff like that, as we talk about things, to be able to show people what you're doing. And like I said, this will probably almost certainly come out after the Mad Magazine cover is released. So I'll make sure to put that up for sure.
Cool. If I forget, remind me.
I will. I'm good about that. When I'm editing the episode, I'll be like, come on, give me. But yeah, like I remember when I was in art school, you would have those days where they're like, we're drawing everything with your left hand. And you'd be like, no, this is stupid. And then, ugly drawings. Or like, the compound drawings where you're like, you can't look at your hand when you draw.
Right.
And that ended up coming in handy when I started working digitally, before I got like a tablet monitor, and I had just a standard tablet, and you have to look at the monitor while you,
right. And we're going to wake them or something and trying to draw here and look there.
I was in the game industry for 15 years, and that's how I created art all day, every day. So I got really good at that. But yeah, it's that thing. Like sometimes you have to break your standard habits to rewire some circuitry in your brain. And I think that's definitely, I might try to do that.
I really recommend it. I can't explain it. It's very strange to me. I mean, I don't know what it was. And at the time I was so excited by that process that I was like, I am going to do a drawing a day. And I was drawing a bird a day for a while. And then I got distracted, fell off the wagon.
Of course. It so happens. Yeah, you have my favorite of all of your paintings are your hip hop birds, like your golden age of hip hop birds. There's like a Biggie Smalls, and there's the NWA,
Run DMC.
Run DMC pigeons it's one of my favorite paintings of all time.
Oh, thank you. I really like that one too.
So the fact that you were drawing birds isn't surprising to me.
I really like birds. I mean, I don't know what it is. There's a ton of them here in the studio all over the place too. And,
well, it probably has something to do with your Catwoman thing. Is a freedom thing, right? It's probably maybe. Like birds represent, freedom. Like birds can fly away. They can do whatever they want.
I think that's great.
And nobody's putting them in a bottle and making them keep their wishes to themselves.
Right, not getting stuffed in a bottle and saying you have to vacuum the floor with an actual vacuum cleaner.
Right. Oh God, I remember that. I never really cared for that show. I don't think. She's so beautiful that as a young boy, obviously that was like an attractor. But I always remember thinking that show was kind of weird. And it's probably
a weird
why.
Show.
I grew up in a pretty progressive family. Like my family was like everything from like extreme, corporate engineer Republicans to like literal, flower children hippies, and all different races and all different sexualities. And so our big, massive family of just kind of, it's been one of the benefits, I think, of my entire life is to have been exposed to family members of all different types, so that I know somebody that I personally love who fits in all the different places in the world. And so when I see somebody being negative towards a particular type of person, whether it's for their sexuality or their color or their skin or their politics or their religion, I can immediately go, I don't like that because somebody I know is that, and that's not cool for me. And it's done wonders for me as a person to just be accepting of all different types of people. And so, a lot of how I view, what you were saying about like all those shows in the 60s with like, I came from a very progressive family when it came to women's rights and stuff. And so, I think I got a weird feeling about a lot of those shows just because I was like, something just seemed off in the way I was raised,
Something was off with those shows. I mean, it's funny. Like, I was raised by a single working mother, and that had, both positive and negative effects. I mean, one of the things I just thought growing up, I was like, okay, so you fall in love with people, and then over the course of time, and this is completely natural, you learn to loathe and disgust, feel loathing and disgust for them. And then you get divorced, and then you go on and you live your like single power woman life, because that was kind of my mom. So I had a really tough time kind of rewiring my head, for my relationships and stuff, because I was just like, well, sure, you love somebody, but that's never going to last. I mean, it takes so long to kind of, rewire all this stuff in my head.
It's weird.
My poor husband, who had to tolerate a long period of me going like, well, it's great now, sure. Everything's great now, but someday.
Right. Yeah. That is like a thing. That whole, we believe the stories that we're taught or told when we're kids. And like, at some point you get to this adult level and you're like, wait a minute, that's not how it has to be at all.
But if it's all
I get to make a decision on it.
If it's all you ever see as a kid, you've got nothing else. I mean, you got TV and you've got your family. My grandparents really seemed to despise each other, and my grandmother was making her main job in life was making my grandfather's life as close to a living hell on earth as possible, like as close as she could get it. And I thought, well, this is why my mom is a genius. She bailed on that kind of life for this single life. In retrospect, it's like that was not a genius move. She had her own shit that she was dealing with, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, you have to find better role models, in your course of your life.
You just have to start telling better stories inside of your own mind, and kind of,
telling better stories.
I went through that with, I studied Buddhism for a little while, for a good stretch, but in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it allowed me to rewire everything about my mind, like from how I was raised by my parents to any baggage I had from, how I was raised and how I see the world and how people are expected to be or how people treat each other. All that stuff got kind of rewired through meditation practice and all that kind of stuff. So I have a very practical understanding of rewiring your brain to get rid of all of that crap, because you can do it. You just have to, it's like anything else in life, anything.
I keep falling on and off the meditation wagon. That's something I keep doing and loving it, and then forgetting about it and falling back into it. But that rewiring, I think, is so. There's something about this desire to fix stories that I think comes from my slightly fucked up family.
Yeah, everybody.
And it's the effect of, I think reading just like epic amounts of science fiction and stuff as a kid, this idea of like multiple universes, alternate realities. And so it's like, okay, in this world, this is what happened here. But what if in this world it went this way, and in this world it went that way, and this world that way? So for a really long time, I think a lot of my paintings were really serious, like what ifs. Like the Bride of Frankenstein, beautiful movie. James Whale's Bride of Frankenstein, must see for everyone. Beautiful, but heartbreaking, like awful, like really, really crushingly, soul-stirringly heartbreaking. The monster just wants to have a companion in life, love and companionship. And the creature created for him, spoiler alert, it does not go well. As iconic as the Bride of Frankenstein, there she is, and many other places here. She's in the movie for about 5 minutes, because she takes one look at him and it is not a love connection. It is not love at first sight, and it goes really south. And I've done so many paintings where it's like, no, it's like, but
let me fix this.
Them to be happy. Exactly. The brush is a magic wand. Like, let me fix this. Let me make this better. Let me create what I want to see. The lunchboxes and stuff that I did and way back when were all like, well, what if, Batman and Catwoman could get together? What if all these different things could be happening on these lunchboxes that were definitely not for kids, because really they were fairly pornographic. They were very adult in nature. But yeah, it was very much like, what if, what if the end of, Planet of the Apes, little baby, Caesar Milo doesn't die? What if they get to be, all that stuff. I mean, I play these things out 100,000 times in my head, and just try to make a better ending for so many of these. It's like, magic, trying to wave a magic wand and make a better.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think that's a lot of creatives, like, that's kind of what we're doing, is we're trying to That's what they say. You're usually most successful when you're creating something that comes from your own experience. And so I think a lot of times, like, we have those things inside of us that we're kind of hashing out about life. I have never been able to find a voice with my art that's anywhere near that deep. I just want to make skulls.
Well, what are you? There's nothing wrong with that. Skulls are cool. Skulls are like this amazing recognition of like the thing that's inside all of us.
It's mortality.
Regardless.
It's human mortality.
Yeah. You're just doing an update on like a Vanitas painting or something, this idea that like we're all, as I am, you will someday be kind of thing. It's deep. It's just deep in a different way. It's not as obvious.
Yeah.
But what do you work on right now? What story? What do you want to be telling? What do you want to be talking about in your art?
Well, one of the things that I do not sell paintings in any kind of regularity enough to invest a lot of time in painting and still be able to pay my bills. But painting is the thing that I love to do the most. So I've been kind of like all kind of painting. So it's like, once a year I'll get asked to be in a group show and I'll do a piece. And then I'll go back to the rest of my life. But I've decided that I'm going to do a YouTube art channel where like I just record myself making art, whether it's painting a pair of Vans or doing an actual canvas painting or whatever it is, customizing a skateboard, whatever it is. And I want to just, and one of the things I want to do is film myself learning how to do a new thing. Mm-hmm. Like I have never oil painted. And so I'm going to teach myself how to oil paint and everybody's going to get to watch me do it. So that's kind of where I'm headed next with my art. Nobody's on tour, so I can't do merchandise for bands right now. There's just not a lot of that going on. And so I started doing this show as kind of just, I've been wanting to do it for a while because I have so many cool, creative friends who make things and people who inspire me that make things that I was like, I can use what little clout I have in the world and what little ability I have to talk to people, to share that stuff with other people. And so I decided that's what I wanted to do with this. And then this is going to have like a little hiatus because I have so many people built up that I can, by the end of next week, I'll have enough people recorded to get to the end of the year.
Wow.
And so I'm going to take a couple months. You have
been busy.
Yeah. That's how I do things. I'm a grinder. I learned that from the video game industry where it's like, you just sit and you grind. And so, actually I learned that from my father because I've never met a human being who works harder than my father. And so I'm going to be starting to paint again, here very soon and making all kinds of different art. These YouTube art channels are like when I was researching putting this show onto YouTube, I started having to watch YouTube to learn how it works on the business side of it. And I came across all these really cool art sites. It's like everybody gets a chance to be their own Bob Ross if they want to. Yeah. Then there's all these painters and customizers and all these people who have these amazing channels. And I cannot stop watching people make art on these channels. And I was like, well, I'm just going to do that.
That's great. When you get around to doing oil painting, let me know if you need any, I don't know, whatever, if you need a materials list or I don't know what kind of advice I can give, but if you need to pick somebody's brain about oil painting.
I've had a couple of the oil painters that I have talked to in this second batch of people, and everybody's like, just let me know, man. And so
yeah. Well,
I will,
Fisher, right?
for
it's
sure.
Like first hits free. It's so delicious. It's so lovely. I spent a long time being really married to acrylic painting. That's what I was using when I was doing all the lunch boxes for adults, and the TV tray paintings were all acrylic and enamel on metal, on tin, that I would have to like sand them and prime them and prepare the servant paint and then seal them with this like brain-eating stuff that had all kinds of like toluene, terrible chemicals in it. Oh, and God, I don't do that anymore.
I still do that, but
I hope you wear a respirator because it took me a while to get around to that. I used to get these terrible headaches that would just be like, I think I just lost a quarter of my brain.
Yeah, but I do a lot of airbrush work. So one of the things that I do is I I custom paint ice hockey goalie masks. There's some up above me, and that's all automotive paint and automotive clear coats. And so it's like I had to learn all that.
Paint hockey masks. You know, my husband's a goalie. He's Canadian.
Well, yeah,
so
I've been a goalie for 45 years. I've been playing goals for like 45 years.
Okay. When we're not performing for other people, we're going to talk about this.
I'll send you a link to my website. He can check out my masks.
Cool. Yeah. So I love acrylic paint. I was doing acrylic paint forever, and then it reached this point. And if you remind me, I'll send you pictures of specifically the paintings that I'm talking about. But the last 2 TV tray paintings that I did were pushing so hard, like really pounding the square peg into the round hole to make this thing do what it can't, and this thing does effortlessly. And it was just, using all these glaze mediums and extenders and all this stuff. And I was talking to Mark Ryden, actually, and he was like, I can't believe you did that painting in acrylic. I got to go look at that again. And he's like, why aren't you just doing this stuff in oil? And we talked about it, and I was like, why aren't I just doing this in oil? And I think I'd had a really early, terrible experience with oil paint. And, I used it in art school. You had to use it in art school and stuff. But I wasn't doing the kind of things in art school that I wanted to be doing. We were doing, big art school paintings, blah, blah, mess. And Eric White and Mark Ryden both sort of nudged. I think Eric even gave me a little jar of this painting medium that he'd mixed himself, like his special blend. And it really was like at this point of no return. Like you touch that stuff. I think you touch it and you either love it or hate it. I think it's one of those really polarizing things. You either touch it and you're like, oh, this is what's been missing in my life. Like, I love the smell. I love the look. I love it. Feels like, like some of the paints, there's so much pigment in the tubes. Like certain paints, they are like little tiny barbells. They're so heavy. This is a really cool paint too, but
I've had a lot of people in my life tell me that I need to switch to oils, but if those people had been Eric White and Mark Ryden, I might have listened.
You may try it and discover you hate it. I mean, I think there's a little bit of this sort of like, I think there's definitely a snobbery about it. I think there's a huge snobbery about oil paint.
That might be part of it for me. I hate that shit.
Real painters using oil paint. I think that's bullshit too. I think you can do anything you want with any medium you want. That stuff, just take that out of the equation. Just, do you like it? Are you looking at it and liking it? Then it doesn't matter how it was painted or what was used. Could have done it with your foot and poster paint from like the drugstore. It doesn't matter. But there is a certain it's almost like the Mooney cult thing, like, oh, you have to try oil paint.
I know.
You do. You need to do it. You need to try it. It's really good. Because there is a sort of like weird, yummy, sexy quality to it. There is something about this, like the oil and the smell and the this. So there's this sort of buttery, I don't know what it is. It's very seductive.
Well, I'm about to go really down that road, so I'm about to find out finally.
Wait to hear all about it. I hope it's a positive experience.
My mom is an artist. And she even has used oil paints, and she actually gave me a ton. She was like teaching art classes, and she was working at an art store, and she like went through and like packed up a big bunch of stuff for me like 20 years ago. And she's like, you're going to start oil painting. You paint too well to just not know how to do that.
Everybody pushes oil paint.
And then, and I think a little bit of it was the snobbery. I was like, I don't know. And then, part of it was, I like to work really fast, and I was intimidated by the drying times, and also super concerned that I wouldn't do it right so that the painting didn't hold up. And if somebody bought it, it was like falling off of the canvas in 10 years.
There's a science to it that you have to pay a little bit of attention to, but it's not, it's not like chemistry. You don't have to like remember formulas or anything.
Right. Well, that's what painting goalie masks is. It is a lot of chemistry.
It's already in you. You already have that practice in your brain. It's just, I mean, it's not that complicated. It's just that like fat. I mean, it's fat over lean. Mm-hmm. It just means that the successive levels that you paint with have to have a little bit more oil in them as you go up, so that it doesn't crack apart.
Sure.
The truth is that would all happen after a long day anyway. But
I kind of I think a lot of it was like, I can paint and make acrylics do what I want it to do, and I don't know that there's anything oils can do that is going to advance the way that I paint. I'm certain that there is, and I'm 100% positive that the things that I do with acrylic paint, my paintings will get better. I have no doubt about it. And so, kind of in the vein of what am I doing with my art is I'm going to let everybody watch me learn how to oil paint.
I look forward to it. I think that's going to be great.
Yeah, and make all kinds of
like
other, all kinds of other art too. Like I want to start, like there's all these like cool, like dudes who like they customize shoes, like full paintings on canvas vans that are just like really cool. And in the last year, I became a licensed rat fink artist. And so like through the family. And so I can now make officially licensed rat fink art. And, whatever it is that I sell, I give a piece back to the family gladly.
Wow.
And so
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, it is.
Are there a lot of licensed rat fink artists? Is it a?
I don't know exactly. I was in contact with a woman, Alyssa Hurt, shout out, who was a licensed rat fink artist, and I asked her, I was like, how does that work? Because I mean, my dad was like a hot rod guy, and he was a pinstriper, and so I grew up like the first piece of art I can remember seeing that made an impression on me was rat fink. Like walking into the Cow Palace in San Francisco, and there's a giant fiberglass rat fink coming out of the top of like a Pinto dragster, and I was like, I don't know what that is, but that's what I want the rest of my life to look like, And so I've been doing, fink style art forever. And in the late 90s, before Ed passed, I was at a game company and I designed a rat fink racing game, and it actually got into production. I got to work with Ed on some characters that were specific to the game. And so that was just, for me, that was amazing to be able to work with Dad Roth. And, then the game got canceled. It never came out.
Oh.
And, but I still own all those characters. The game company gave me back when they went out of business. They gave me back the
they
copyright.
Don't own ownership. They don't hold all the ownership of it. That's great.
They gave me back the game design and all the characters. So I own that entire thing. And I could just go back to the Roth family and say, hey, I own all this. We can fire it back up if you want.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
So I have all that. And so, I talked to Alyssa and I was like, how does that go? How do you go about doing that? And she's like, well, I'll just give you, Ed's, I can't come up with their name right now. I'm terrible when I'm talking to somebody. I can't bring up names from nowhere.
I do that too. Yeah.
I emailed Ed's widow, and she was like, she looked at all of my work and she was like, you're absolutely dead perfect for this. And so, sent over the contracts and I signed the contracts.
Cool.
And so it's like a 3-year deal. And so there will be a lot of me making rat fink licensed art on my new channel that will, kind of, so
that's awesome. So you're achieving your young person child dream. Like the thing that was super inspiring to you has actually come around and become a part of your life. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's totally awesome. Yeah, I was very excited. And my dad was like, whoa. It was like my parents have always been very, very, very supportive of my art stuff. Especially because, like I said, my dad was like a pinstriper. My mom, she's an artist. She does a lot of like craft type stuff, but she does full on oil and acrylic paintings on her stuff. That's like wood based stuff. So, I come from an artsy family and they've always been really supportive, but every now and then something happens and my dad or my mom will be like, whoa. And when I told my dad I did the rat fink thing, he was like, whoa, like that's, cause that was something that he really understood. So yeah, that was cool. And so there's going to be a lot of that going on in my soon to be art life.
That's great.
Yeah. So, I wanted to touch a little bit on the stuff that you're teaching.
Sure.
How long have you been doing that? Where are you teaching at, and how long have you been kind of in that game?
I haven't been teaching formally super long. I'll try and make a long story very short. A couple years ago, maybe more than that, my husband gave me a ukulele and I taught myself how to play and just sort of accidentally fell into a band, and then we started playing gigs. And then it was like, I want to share the joy of this thing with other people. And so I started just teaching other people like how to play ukulele. And I was like, I think I've always loved sharing knowledge. It's like, I hate this idea of like, why reinvent the wheel? Why do we have to keep doing this? Like if I know how to do something, let me tell you how to do something. And I have benefited from other people who have shared knowledge with me, and I want to be part of that chain. I don't want the chain to end. I want this knowledge to flow through me forward to other people. And so I've had painting students, young people, in my studio, and we've worked side by side in here, and I've really enjoyed that. And I think I've wanted to teach for a really long time, but the logistics of it were kind of complicated in my brain. And I was worried that it would eat my life. I was worried that I would love it so much, or that it would become so all-consuming that everything else would just get like pushed to the side. Sure. And again, like always trying to find the balance, always trying to figure out how to keep the various color slices in the pie in the proper rotation. I was scared that this thing, I think I had a feeling that I would love it so much that I would willingly give up a lot of other things in my life to fully focus on this. And it's certainly the first semester, which was only like a year ago, was a lot like that, because I told my students, I'm pretty sure I said like the first class, like, so I have so much to tell you. I have so much information and so much knowledge and so much stuff to share, and we have so much stuff to learn about together, that it's going to kind of be like you're a foie gras duck, but I'm going to be force feeding your eyeballs instead of, your throat. And I'm a vegetarian, so I say that, with hesitation, but yes, foie gras duck, it's coming at you. And I really feel that. I mean, I have so much, it's an excitement for sharing this knowledge. And it's so exciting to see, obviously, and I remember this from being in my own class, not everybody gets lit up by the same stuff. I don't expect everybody to respond to what I'm talking about the same way. But it's so awesome when you see the lights going off, and you get some back and forth, and you see things happening, and you see this stuff kind of, growing in the work and the ideas, because I'm really, really focusing on ideas and idea creation and concepts and symbolism and the meaning of color and light and shadow and all this kind of stuff, that the things that obsess me, I want to share my obsessions. So that's fairly recent. That's a newish thing. And I love it both because I have this desire to channel outward. I want to put all this knowledge and information and stuff and push it out into the world. And I've realized, and it's so funny to come to some of these realizations so late in life, but I need social contact to be a happy person. Like it's so easy for me to hermit out. It's so easy. I like my studio. I like spending time in here. I can go easily pre-quarantine weeks and literally not set foot outside the front door of the house. And I'm not, maybe to pick up the mail, and that's it. And then, you start noticing like, God, I went to the post office and I mailed a bunch of orders and books and stuff and prints. And I had this great conversation with the lady at the post office, and I feel so much better today. And it's just realizing that these little interactions, and you can look this stuff up. There are so many studies that like back this up. It just took me so long to figure this out. Like, you think, and this is true not just of me, this is a studied thing that you can look up. You think that the perfect thing is just you alone.
Solitude.
Maybe not all the time, but you think like, and they've studied this like on the subway in New York City. Like everybody thinks like the ideal is just sitting on the subway, not talking to anybody. You're listening, you're reading a book, no interaction. Everybody thinks that's the ideal. But when they've done studies and forced people, they paid them with like an Amazon gift card or something for the purpose of the study. Like, on this ride, we're going to break you into 3 groups. Group A, you have to talk to somebody on the subway about something, total strangers. Group B, do not talk to anybody, even if you normally would, or somebody just don't. And group C, do whatever you want, control group. And everybody thinks like, man, the group that doesn't have to talk to anybody are the lucky ones. Man, I want to be one of those people. They track all these things, and the people who talk to people are happier. And it lasts. It's like has this lasting effect, even interactions with like total strangers. And these studies, they keep breaking it down further and further. Like, how little contact does it take to boost your endorphins, to boost your mood, to make you feel better? Even just passing somebody on the sidewalk and like smiling and nodding a little bit is enough. Like we're chimps, we're social animals, we're interacting with each other. So I realized like a huge uplift came from having to get out of my studio, take all my crap, go into the city, plonk down and just interact with, this awesome group of students, these young people who are just starting. It's so exciting. It's so exciting. They're just starting.
Where is it that you teach at?
CCA, California College of Art in San Francisco.
Okay.
In the illustration department.
Do you teach oil painting or?
No, I think that was the first thing they asked me to teach, is if I wanted to teach a painting class. And I said, hell no. The things that I have taught myself and the way that I paint is so specific and weird and odd just to what I'm trying to do that I would never want to pass that on to other people. It's very, a little probably not the way other people are painting or the way you're even supposed to paint. I just do what I need to do to get the image the way I want it.
Sure.
So, and also I'm not that interested in technique. Like, I really feel like that's great. If you want to teach technique, more power to you. But I feel like that's something that you can learn sort of observationally, or, like you were saying, like watch YouTube videos. There's so many people teaching watercolor and gouache and oil painting and acrylic and stenciling and spray painting and airbrushing. Like that stuff is great. That's really not what I want to share. I am really fascinated with what's going on in here. I'm really interested in where ideas are coming from, how we make ideas better, how we hone ideas, craft them, turn the screws up a little bit, take this piece out, put this other piece in, turn it upside down, hammer on it a little bit. And now, if you have this thing that you're trying to say, what's the best way? What tools can you use? What visual cues, symbols, color, all this stuff? How do you make this thing the most revved up, best version of this idea? How do you make it the best? And that's where all my excitement is. It's like I want to help them think better. And I don't care what the medium is, and I think it's like the most important thing, because it's like you can have incredible technique, like jaw-droppingly beautiful technique, but if the skeleton isn't there, if the idea isn't solid, if you haven't thought it all out and worked out all this stuff, then it's just like an empty skin sack. It's beautiful, great skin, but it's just sort of hanging there. It doesn't have anything inside it. So
that's
I really
awesome.
Inside out for all this stuff. So
I think that for like a fine arts program, I think that every school should have that. You know what I mean? Like, that's like a huge thing. That's a huge thing. And and
I'm teaching in the illustration department, so I'm not even sure what's going on in the fine art department.
Well, they should be teaching people in fine arts that too.
Yeah, hopefully they are. I mean, I hope there's something like that over there. It's funny how everything's all separated and stuff, but
yeah, that's super cool. And I think it's cool that I'm the same way. Like if I'm always up for teaching somebody something or learning something. And in the goalie mask industry, I was very widely known for my dogs. My dog comes into the shop and he's very old and he gets stuck out here sometimes. So if I'm looking over there, it's because I'm trying to make sure he's okay. So yeah, like in the goalie mask industry, I'm very well known as the guy who helps all the new people. Like I've had like at least 3 or 4 different. Oh my God, he came back in. I have at least 3 or 4 different goalie mask artists that over the course of like the last 3 or 4 years, like they went from not knowing how to do it but wanting to full blown professionals, because anytime they had a question, they knew that they could message me on Instagram anytime and be like, paint's not sticking, or, how do I make this stencil work in this way? Or it's like, how do I mix my paint? Am I using the right clear coat? Like all these different things. And I'm like, other older, more established painters are like, why are you giving all of these kids all this information? They're going to take all your work. And I'm like, there's enough work for everybody, first of all. And second of all, that's not how I want to live my life. Like I would rather, like, I guess, I don't know, maybe it's an age thing. Maybe I'm at the age where I'm like, I've spent all of these years developing all of this information and all these skills. Maybe now it's time for me to give them to somebody else. So that
I don't know if it is an age thing, because I know people at all stages of life, and you either are, a mentoring kind of person, or you're very competitive. And I've never understood the super competitive thing at all. There's some phrase, I wish I could remember it perfectly, that's like a candle loses none of its brightness by lighting other candles.
Right.
And I really like that. I mean, I really feel that. It's like nothing that you do nothing that I do is diminished by helping somebody else do what they want to do.
Agreed. We are in full agreement on that. That's amazing. I think we covered pretty much all the good stuff. This was super awesome. I'm really happy to have gotten to know you a little
Likewise.
bit on a personal level, because, and like I said, I've been such a fan for so long, and like, you know, it's that thing, like sometimes you get to know the people who you admire and they end up being super awesome. And then that's like the greatest gift that life can give you.
Yeah.
And like you said, most people
Well,
are. I mean, I've met a couple people in the art business who weren't, and I've met a handful of people in the music business. I was in touring bands and stuff, and for the most
sometimes
part,
people change too. Like somebody that you meet, you know, as they're on their way up, they're great and super down to earth, and then you check in with them a few years later, and they're not the same person anymore, and that's always
Right.
a little upsetting too. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's like, oh man,
I've been
you know.
spared that for the most part, but so yeah, I appreciate you coming on and giving me your time.
Sure.
I think people who aren't aware of your work, whoever they are, they're going to be very, very excited to see your stuff. And I hope everybody does go and look at your websites and checks out all your work, because it's next level stuff.
I need to update my website. Instagram has more recent stuff on it.
Always. I think there's like a motivational financial kind of bro guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, who I follow, who's like a constant, like, this is how you make it happen in life. And it totally geared towards slightly younger dudes than I am, flat brim hat guys. But he does have a lot of really good information. And one of his quotes is like, the price of admission to being in business in this day and age is social media. That's you have to.
I need to up that game, because this is going to sound ridiculous. I literally, and this is not a joke, I keep forgetting that Instagram exists. I do. I mean, I have a very full pie chart with a lot of different sections and a lot of different things that I'm trying to do. I often describe my life as one of those circus acts where you're trying to keep all the poles spinning,
all the plates.
all the plates. I'm trying to keep all the plates going all the time. All the plates. I've got commissions over here, and I've got a different commission over there, and I've got, this thing that I'm trying to work on over there, stuff out there, stuff over there, stuff over there. And I forget that I'm supposed to be pushing stuff out into the world. I forget that I'm supposed to be pushing content or whatever, or giving people, and it's stupid, because I enjoy seeing what other people are up to.
Sure.
I just literally forget. I think it's also a little bit of like a self-deprecating thing or something. Like, most of the time I assume, like, well, who wants to see this? Like, it's not even finished, So
Right.
I see other people gleefully posting like all kinds of stuff. I think I'm also shy to show work in progress, because it's like, well, what if somebody really loves it and I have completely changed it by the time it's finished? Even if I never hear from anyone, the idea that somebody would be looking like, oh God, I liked it so much better before she painted all this stuff over it. I don't think I can even handle thinking about it. So
Yeah.
I'm oddly reticent to put all that stuff up. I can only put up progress shots usually when the work is finished. And then I can kind of backload and go like, okay, I'll put this progress shot up, and then I'll put this thing up, and then I'll show them the finish. But I can only do that because it's done. Like it's somehow it's safe, because I've kind of locked it already, so I don't have to second guess myself. It's so funny how far up your own ass you can go. Just how far out into the woods you can wander, kind of, second guessing yourself. And so I think it's easier for me just to forget that that's something I'm supposed to be doing. And I know I need to be more diligent about it, but it's hard, It's like, would you rather do that or go make crackers? I don't know. Just
Yeah, I feel you. Like it's like almost its own job, trying to keep up with the youngsters and their and the youngster artists and all of their stuff with the social media. But I actually do enjoy it. A little bit of my of that hermit part of me. I can like fulfill that with like talking to people online a little bit.
That's the ironic thing. Like I love interacting with people. Like I am a hermit and I love that level of back and forth. And I think, I don't know, whatever it is, I've just gotten into a habit of not making it a habit.
Right.
So I need to work on that a little bit. But.
I totally get it. And I'm assuming we're very, very similar in age. And so yeah, we've gotten to see the dawn of a lot of strange new ways of having to live your life.
Yeah, for sure. But it's also complicated too, because it's like a lot of times, like I've got 3 commissions kind of stacked up in various states of progress over here, and I can't show that stuff. It's like I don't want the person that it's for to see it. They don't want a reveal until it's done. And so it all has to sort of stay hidden. Every once in a while you get a commission where it's like they don't want anybody to see it. Like the thing is just like it's private, it's just going from them to somebody else or something. So there's a little bit of a damper on some of the work I do too that just makes it a little more right now it's just all commissions. It's either something for publication or it's all direct to a person, which I really used to hate and now really love. Like I used to find commissions really problematic because I think I would worry so much. Like you do a painting and if somebody buys it, it's like it's a closed circle. They bought it, they liked it, and now they have it. But when you're doing a commission, they haven't seen it. And I always sort of imagine that in their mind, they're picturing this. And I'm trying to do my thing and not think too much about what they're picturing. Because if you do that, then you get all caught up in like, what if this isn't what they wanted? What if they had something else in mind? You have to just like shut all that down and just sort of go into this place and work on it. And that used to be a real hard place for me to get to shut that out. But podcasts really help because I think I can distract that side, the little thing on my shoulder that's going like, this isn't working. I think this color sucks and that doesn't look like a finger at all. You can kind of like cut that guy off if you can distract him and go, listen to this word pile happening over here.
Yeah.
And then you can just work on your stuff.
One of the worst things you can hear as an artist is, oh, just do your thing. I like what you do. Just go ahead and do your thing. And it's like, they never mean that. Nobody really means that.
They don't.
And second of all, it's like, for me personally, because I'm a commercial illustrator and designer, I'm very used to people saying, this is what I want. Or I'm working for a band and they have an aesthetic and I have some place to go from. So like I was talking to another guest about how when it's time for me to sit down and paint and do something that's not for anything, I struggle so bad because I'm so trained to have something to work from, whether it's an idea or,
the framework, the skeleton.
Yeah. And it's like, even with my own personal goalie mask, like I'll do 10 designs and be like, I don't like any of these. Right. And it's like always the hardest for me to do work that isn't for anything or even for myself. And so, yeah, I totally get that thing with commissions is kind of that weird thing.
Like that's the sort of that area is what I'm hoping to have some kind of time affluence to explore. Like I really want to figure out like if I can finish all my commissions, make everybody happy, and if there's some break between when some other deadline comes along, I really want to see what happens in that empty bowl space. It's like nobody's asking me for anything. There's no theme. There's no requirement. Like what I really want to do right now, and I don't know where this is coming from, I just want to paint miniatures. Like I find my focus really narrowing down. And I think while I can still see things small, I want to take advantage of that. And I find myself being drawn. I've been like scoring all these like antique frames on eBay and on estate sales and stuff. Beautiful, weird little things. And I just want to work in about this size for a little while and just see how much I can cram into that tiny little space. Also just, I think there's something about miniature art that is, you have to have a different relationship with it. It's not something you can stand back on the wall with a bunch of people and kind of look at it and go like, yeah, I like that, this over here. You have to get really close to it. And the minute you do that, you're now in a very personal space, having a really personal dialogue with this little thing, just you and that thing together, that image, whatever that is. And I want to go there. I kind of want to mess around with that a little bit. So
yeah, that would be awesome. I can't wait to see what you come up with in that. I can't. You have to do it because now I want to see it.
Me too. I want to see them too. That's the thing, is I want them to exist. I want to see them. I had this idea for doing what I wanted to call like the tiny wall show forever. I mean, for years I've had this kicking around in my head. You're the first person I'm saying it to. Maybe I'm making myself accountable by saying it out loud. But I have this little wall that's like between this door and the bathroom door, and it's about, it's like maybe as wide as you can see in the frame of this image. And I just wanted to fill it with little tiny paintings.
I had I was in a group show once, and it was just everybody, could pretty much do whatever they wanted. It was a very diverse group of artists, and one guy, shout out Tom Mott, he cut out Pantone tiles, and he built a little shelf around the entire gallery, and he made the Pantone pieces paintings, and then he just put miniature people staring. He built a miniature gallery inside of the gallery. It was one of the most creative uses of a group show I've ever seen, because
that's awesome.
You got to see his piece. Every other piece you were looking at, his was right below it through the whole gallery. It was so cool. He's an insanely smart guy. He owns a board game company now. And he hires me for illustration work for his board company, for his board games and card games. And so we still work together. He was my first studio manager like 25 years ago. And he's an amazingly talented person. And I was, to this very day, it's still one of the coolest things I've ever seen in an art gallery.
Oh, that's so great. I want to see pictures.
I'll have to ask him if he has any, because if he does, I'll definitely throw one up.
I'd love to see it. Yeah, it's like even that, like taking it even smaller and smaller and smaller. I don't think I have the mental bandwidth or the eyesight to do something at that scale. But I think the smallest thing I ever did was like a little terrarium with little, those little railroad people.
That's
the kind of people you're talking about, right?
Yeah, same size.
Yeah,
like
I made like a little
scale.
zombie scene. Like I cut them up into little pieces and made blood on them and stuff. And I made this little like sort of post-apocalyptic zombie landscape terrarium.
I love
because
it.
I didn't.
Do you have pictures of that?
I'll look for it.
I want to see that.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna let you go. Get on with the rest of your day. This was a fantastic conversation. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Thanks for giving me my social contact.
Of course.
My chimp companion moment for the
day. Totally. We'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Mike.
Yep. Bye.